It's the holiday season, and we're getting a nice present here on Tuesday Judgements. We actually get to see Clark in person. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz, Clark Judge. Glad to be with you on Tuesday Judgements here on CBSSports.com. And, of course, we're heading into Week 17, and, Clark, that means playoff scenarios. But for that, be sure to check out the End Zone presented by Sony, because you'll have a full breakdown of both the AFC and NFC. Clark, on this edition of Tuesday Judgements, I want to talk about coaches. Okay. And specifically, let's talk about coaches that have shots to make the playoffs. Let's start with Dallas. If Wade Phillips does not make the playoffs, is he gone in Dallas?
Well, you would think he would be, because they haven't made the playoffs. He hasn't won a playoff game. You'd think that would be the case. But Jerry Jones last week said, no, coaching's not an issue. Now, I don't know why, but that tells you that Jerry Jones doesn't have a lot of faith in his successor, and that's Jason Garrett, who's supposedly the head coach in waiting. Maybe not. So I think he's got a shot to come back. If you ask me now whether I think he'll be back, I'd say no. But listening to Jerry Jones, he says yes.
Well, Jerry Jones has said a lot of things over the course of his time in Dallas. What about in Minnesota? Brad Childress, again, has had a chance, and we know that Minnesota in the past has a history of collapsing down the stretch. If they lose to the Giants and the Bears win, they're out of the playoffs. Do you think he loses his job?
Yeah, I think in this case, that's probably the case. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not here to determine that. But I think Brad Childress has to make the playoffs, and I think that was the case before the season. They had a team they thought they could win with. I think Ziggy Wells thinks they can win the division, should win the division. If he doesn't get there, yeah, I think Brad's gone.
What about Eric Mangini of the Jets?
I think he's gone as well. I think you look at his contract, he's got a 4-year deal. He's in his 3rd year, so you either extend him or you fire him. And I think if you look at this team, it's been an underachieving ball club, and it's faded down the stretch. If he doesn't make it, yeah, he's gone.
All right, let's talk about teams that can't make the playoffs, but there are coaches that are, whether they're sweating or not, whether they're going to be there. The Bills and Dick Duran. Now, there's reports that he signed the contract extension. There's reports that who knows if he's going to be there. Your thoughts on Buffalo?
Well, I mean, I think he did get a contract extension. If that's the case, in this economy, I don't know how you can can him now. But if you listen to Ralph Wilson, he says in the next 2 weeks they'll make a determination. Now, whether that means that some of his power will be usurped, I don't know. But it's clear that he's playing for his job at this point. And I think players indicated that after the Kansas City game, after the game last week against Denver, where they said, we felt we had to win this game for Dick. Well, if they're going into this game this weekend, it sounds to me like he's playing for his job. So, yeah.
And Ian Eagle, who always joins us on the End Zone, always talks about how they play so hard for him. They love him there in Buffalo. He really is the epitome of what that city is.
It's hard not to like Dick Duran. He's a great guy, but you look at what happened when they lost 7 of 8 games after that start. I think that's what Ralph Wilson's looking at. Now, if they finish here with a couple wins, they're playing hard for him. That means something, and Ralph took note of that. But I think he's going to watch this game and make a determination after it.
All right, what about Washington now? In the Washington Post on Tuesday, the reports that they came out and the Redskins are going to keep Jim Zorn. Right move, though.
Yeah, I do think it's the right move. He's been on the job 1 year. They're 8-7 in his first year. It's his first year as a head coach anywhere. And I think if you look before the season and said, this team is 8-7 after 15 games, you'd say, that's a great job. But they went 6-2, then faded, come back and beat Philadelphia last week. I still think he's done a good job. He deserves a chance to come back.
And I agree with you. You need more than just 1 year on the job to turn a team around. Even though they were a playoff team last year, they had that remarkable run at the end to get it to that point. This weekend, we're going to see the Chargers and Broncos. The winner gets the AFC West. Is it poetic justice for what happened in Week 2?
Well, it is if San Diego wins. I mean, if you look at San Diego, there's no guarantee they can win this ball game. I mean, I think for San Diego, it would be almost fitting that they lose it the way they played this year. But yeah, because they should have won that game the second week. And had they won that game the second week, they wouldn't be playing for anything now. They'd be the division winner. I know people would say, well, they're 8-8 if they lose this game, and Denver would be 8-8, but they still get the tiebreaker.
They wouldn't have lost anybody in the division.
They wouldn't have lost in the division. And aside from, aside from the Denver game, the first game, which they would have won. So the thing is, it's a deal for, to me, it is justice in terms of they should have won that ball game. They got to take it away from them. Ed Hockley's the most interested guy in this game because his reputation's on the line. San Diego wins, Hockley's off the hook.
And Ed Hockley, of course, the guy who has called many a Super Bowls.
Sure, and a good referee and a good official.
Just had a bad year this year. One last thing, because this is, we're talking about coaches. Mike Shanahan's a guy that you never really think of in terms of a guy who's on the hot seat, but the Broncos have talked about it. There have been rumors. Do you think if they collapse like they have down the stretch and are out of the playoffs, he's out of a job?
Boy, that's a tough one, Jason, because Mike Shanahan's done so much for that organization. But if they don't win this weekend in San Diego, and I don't think they will, that's going to be 3 straight years of not making the playoffs, 2 straight years of non-winning seasons. That might get somebody else can. He's got a very special relationship with Pat Bowlen, and I think that relationship is going to save him. I think Mike stays.
And 2 of those 3 years, though, Clark, collapsing down the stretch. Remember, that San Francisco game 2 years ago, they win that game at home. They're in the playoffs. They didn't do it. They didn't get in, so that's a solid point. All right, folks, that's how we do it here on Tuesday Judgments, presented, well, here on CBSSports.com. But, of course, for more from Clark and Pete Prisco and everybody else here on CBSSports.com, stay with the website. For Clark, it's good to see you in person.
Yeah, thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Merry Christmas, Clark. Happy holidays, everybody. Take care, folks.